If you follow me on the website formerly known as Twitter, you'll see I've been posting a lot of Pokemon trading card game pocket content on there lately, mostly just screenshots of battles and the like. In short, it's a mobile phone card game based on the tabletop Pokemon TCG, but with unique rules and unique cards, intending to compress and simplify things. I've always thought I'd be a big fan of card games, but the initial investment always seemed too high, between learning several expansions and buying tons of packs. Well, for once, I'm in it since the beginning, and it's free, eliminating my main two reservations, and sure enough, this game has been an obsession of mine for the last month or so. I've been playing multiple decks of every element, and following the meta closely as it develops, as well as testing my own variations. A curious question occurred to me recently, and it's, what's the worst card in the game right now? The hardest card to build a team around? Well, I got the itch to explore that a little, and I thought the answer might be interesting, so I'm making a video about one in particular that caught my eye. Keep in mind this is based purely on my own observations and testing, and not based on any discussion I've seen at all. I'm not going to teach you guys the rules of the card game proper in this video, so you might want to look them up, though I will explain some mechanics very briefly with their meta implications just so everyone's on the same page. For the record, at the time of this recording, the Mythical Island set came out just a little bit ago, so there's the base set plus a half expansion. Of course, I want to get a couple obvious Pokemon out of the way. You might think the worst Pokemon in the game is something like Magikarp, and in a vacuum, that's definitely a strong answer. Magikarp with its 30 HP is the most frail Pokemon currently, and in fact can actually be one-shot even by some basic Pokemon such as say Charmander or nearly any electric type thanks to its weakness, which is a massive liability considering it has to spend at least one turn on the field as a Magikarp before evolving. In fact, this particular version of Magikarp right here doesn't even have a way of damaging the opponent. But of course, no Pokemon exists in a vacuum, and this attack has the useful capability of leaving the field while preserving your attached energy. And once your Magikarp evolves into Gyarados, it's one of the best cards currently in the game, albeit one of the slowest to get rolling. It should come as no surprise that having to go through Magikarp is one of the main things keeping Gyarados in check, and indeed, both cards are balanced accordingly. In honor of the utility Magikarp eventually provides if you pour your resources into it, it's spared from my pick. And indeed, the Pokemon I do pick as the worst would need to either be or have a bad evolution of its own. There are also plenty of cards which don't evolve at all and have either no damage, like this Chatot, or extremely mediocre damage, like this Sigilif. For both of these cards, their attacks have extremely useful draw effects, and as draw effects are still quite rare, this can give you a huge lead in development. In fact, this Sigilif is an optional way to build the main meta Psychic deck right now, and I've seen this Chatot used in a Gyarados EX deck where the player instantly played and discarded all 6 fossils whenever he drew them. Then he used this Chatot to repeatedly redraw his hand from a smaller and smaller pool, in order to instantly draw all of his important cards within a couple turns. Clearly, Pokemon with poor combat but good secondary effects can still carve a niche for themselves, so whichever Pokemon I pick as the worst will need to have either no card effect or an aggressively useless one. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's talk about Golett. I'm gonna put it on the left side of the screen, and on the right side I'll put a bog standard basic Pokemon. There's like 24 of this exact card in the game right now. One good thing I'll say about Golett is that it's very distinct. There are almost no Pokemon like it. As you can see, 90 HP is quite a bit bulkier than your standard basic, while 50 damage is quite a bit higher than 20. But the really important thing I want to draw your attention to at the moment is the extremely high energy cost of 1 Psychic, 2 colorless. This might as well be 3 Psychic because I can't imagine a viable Psychic dual type deck in the current meta. This is pretty slow to set up, and the relatively fast pace of this card game, and indeed Ponyta here will have 3 chances to attack in the time it takes for Golett to get 1. So let's analyze a theoretical 1v1 between these two. In fact, I'll even give Ponyta the edge and let it get first energy. Ponyta attaches and hits Golett down to 70, Golett attaches energy, Ponyta hits Golett down to 50, Golett attaches energy, Ponyta hits Golett down to 30, Golett attaches and hits Ponyta down to 10, Ponyta attacks and hits Golett down to 10, Golett kills Ponyta. Wow, even in the scenario where Ponyta has the advantage, it gets 1v1. Not bad, right? Well, there's like a dozen complications to this in a real match setting, and I'm not exaggerating when I say all of them hurt Golett. First, Ponyta is not a card people run to use in and of itself, they run it to evolve it. So let's reevaluate the situation where the opponent pulls a Rapidash. And this time, let's evaluate it in Golett's favor and give it the first energy. Turn 1, Golett attaches energy. Ponyta attaches energy and hits Golett down to 70. Now Golett attaches energy, Ponyta evolves and hits Golett down to 30. Uh-oh. Now Golett has to make a hard call. Attach a third energy, hit Rapidash for 50 damage, and die next turn, using all 3 energy attachment turns yet having nothing to show for it in the back. Or attach an energy to the bench Pokemon and simply allow Golett to die without doing anything. Keep in mind, Rapidash was fully set up after a single energy attachment, so the Rapidash player has been building up his bench the whole time you've been sticking things onto a Golett. He'll have other Pokemon ready to go, while you'll have nothing. And this is me being charitable and giving Golett first energy. If Ponyta gets first energy, you won't even have time to get an attack off before you're dead. And I was also being charitable by using Rapidash as an example. Let's take a look at a Pokemon that sets up a bit faster, such as Voltorb. Once again, we'll give Golett first energy. Golett attaches, Voltorb attaches and hits it down to 70. Golett attaches, Voltorb attaches, evolves, and kills it. Not only did your Golett go down, you wasted 2 turns attaching energy to it, and you didn't even damage the Electrode, which is not easy to one-hit KO without an invested Pokemon, so it's probably donking something else too. At this point, you might be saying, Baf, Golett can evolve too. Well, it can, but its evolution has an even higher energy requirement, so the only reason you'd evolve before hitting 4 energies is to give yourself higher HP to dodge a KO. This is pretty desperate, since you're also adding an extra turn before you can attack just for the extra 50 health, and it's outright bad if they're doing 50 or more damage, or usually useless if they're doing 30 or 40. Unlike the Pokemon Golett is facing, it can't use its evolution to turn the tables in a 1v1 like this. Here's another issue. Thanks to its slow setup, Golett can't be killing things on the way. Let's look at Ponyta. Let's imagine it's fighting a grass deck. Each attack it does is doing 40 damage thanks to grass being weak to fire. In 3 turns, Pony might 2-hit KO something with 80 HP or less, then get 40 damage on something else. Meanwhile, if Golett is fighting a Pokemon weak to Psychic, it does 0, then 70 across 3 turns, rather than Ponyta's 120. Since weaknesses are additive, you get better results if you can attack more often. As you can see, the fundamental problem with Golett is that the high energy cost makes it way too committal. You're putting all of your eggs into one basket trying to build it up. Well, since Golett is a card with an evolution, you're obviously running it to get Golurk, so let's take a moment to evaluate that. I'll tell you right now that the damage output on this card is very respectable, 100 average with a 1/4 chance for 200. As of this recording, the card with the most HP in the game is Venusaur EX with 190, and the only card that reduces damage is Blue, which only reduces it by 10, and can only be used once per turn. So in short, it has a 1/4 chance to one-shot anything in the game from full health. 140 is also an extremely high HP total, something you'd expect to see on a Pokemon EX or a Stage 2 evolution. And unlike a Pokemon EX, the opponent only gets 1 point for killing a Golurk, though it's likely they'll already have 2 points by the time you manage to set one up. So is Golurk a good card that can save Golett, the way Gyarados is a good card that can save Magikarp? Of course, the most immediate problem with Golurk, besides the number of turns you need to set it up, is its consistency. This is an endgame card, and most endgame cards have more than 100 HP. Anything with more than 100 might as well have 200 because you're still going to need 2 total heads to kill something. If you don't get that 1 in 4, other WinCon cards like Charizard EX, Mewtwo EX, or Celebi EX are all just going to kill you in one hit. Quite simply, 100 really misses the mark, and I haven't even mentioned the possibility of doing 0 damage, which can lose even a 1 game on the spot. Let's take a moment to compare a very similar card. This is Marowak EX. Its attack is basically identical to Golurk's, except you get 80 damage per heads instead of 100, and you only need 2 energies to start using it. Well, the damage loss is actually almost insignificant, since there's only like 5 cards in the game with more than 160 HP, so you're still 1-hit KOing almost everything with double heads, and 2-hit KOing everything otherwise. But the reduced energy cost lets you activate it dramatically earlier in the game, which is huge since a lot of the high HP cards won't be in play yet, or if they are, they won't be set up enough to come in safely. And since Marowak can come out so early, very few things can kill it in one hit, so it can actually get several attacks off. You can probably guess that Marowak is a much better card than Golurk, yet it's still one of the worst EX cards in the game simply due to how wildly inconsistent it can be. Here's another card, Kingler. Once again, we're looking at 80 damage rather than 100, but it's only 3 energies instead of 4, so it can come in a little sooner. Once again, the damage loss isn't especially important, and the lower HP is generally not significant. But if you read the text on Kingler's attack, you'll see the effect is just a better version of Golurk's. You still have a 1/4 chance of double damage, but there's no failure chance, you'll always do at least 80. And a really big edge Kingler has over Golurk is much better energy acceleration. Misty lets you coin flip until you get tails and attach that many energies. Even a single heads lets Kingler come out 1 turn sooner, while several heads means it can attack as soon as you can evolve it, which is as early as your 2nd turn of the game. Let's talk about energy acceleration. Basically, the concept is anything that allows you to attach energies faster than once per turn. Psychic only has 1 form of energy acceleration right now, which is Gardevoir. This card lets you attach 1 additional energy to the active Pokemon per turn. That little caveat is huge. You cannot use Gardevoir to attach energies to bench Pokemon, which makes it harder to build up a Golett or Golurk without bringing it in. And Gardevoir, like Golurk, is a very slow, late-game card. You're gonna get mauled in the early game if you're running both the Ralts line and the Golett line, since both of them perform horribly early on. So you're gonna need even more Pokemon that can actually perform well in the early game and have low energy costs, allowing you to spend turns attaching energies to benched Golett. For the Psychic types currently in the game, that pretty much limits you to the Clefairy line or the Ghastly line, both of which are pretty suspect. And running too many Pokemon families in your deck can make it really unfocused and hard to draw what you want. Now, I've been talking about how much Golurk suffers compared to other similar cards and how hard it is to set up, but this is nothing compared to Golett. When Golett is in the active spot, it's probably going to be early game before you can possibly have any Gardevoir in the back. And I haven't even brought this up yet, but 50 damage is absolutely miserable for 3 energies. I'm just going to go through some comparable cards and show Pokemon that either do similar damage for cheaper, or Pokemon that do dramatically more damage for the same cost. And to make it fair, I'm going to limit it to basic Pokemon since they deploy at the same speed as Golett. Here's Farfetch'd. You lose 10 damage, but only a single energy for 40 means you get 3 attacks off in the time it takes for Golett to get 1. Farfetch'd is a staple on fighting type hyper offense and can fit into decks of any type as a fantastic early game card. Here's Pinsir. Your damage goes up to 100 or as low as 0, but you can attack sooner and the possibility of 100s is extremely disruptive for the opponent. Here's Magmar. Less energy for the same damage. Here's Articuno. The damage is higher. I didn't mention yet, but 60 is a very important benchmark since most basics have 60 HP or more. Also, this card's attack has a very powerful and disruptive effect. Here's Onyx. The damage and HP are higher, and you have a form of guaranteed energy acceleration in Brock, which lets you set it up very quickly. Chansey, great card art by the way. Higher damage that hits the threshold, much higher HP, can be used in any deck. Tauros, any deck, same damage, lower cost, more HP. Cramorant, higher damage, better energy acceleration, much better card effect. Marshadow, lower energy cost and an absolutely fantastic effect which makes it a monster at revenge killing. Stonejourner, literally Golett but stronger. I want to emphasize this is one of the cards I considered for this video, yet it's better than Golett in almost every way. And now, let's take a look at even just the Psychic Mons competing with Golett for your deck. Jinx attacks a turn sooner and has the same damage if the opponent has even a single energy attached, while it also gets huge damage against mons that set up tons of energies, such as Celebi or Gyarados. And here's the one I really want to talk about, Mewtwo EX. This is considered one of the top cards in the game right now, and it's not hard to see why. You have a better late game than Golurk since you're throwing out a consistent 150 damage, enough to one-hit KO almost everything, which can be used every turn if you have even a single Gardevoir in the back. And you have a much better early game than Golett since you get 50 damage for 2 energies, meaning you can attack 1 turn sooner. Turns mean everything in this game where you can potentially 2-hit KO something before it can evolve, or kill something before it can kill you. And you also have much higher HP. You're a better tank, a better early game card, and you're a much better win condition. Mewtwo EX is a staple on all Psychic decks. Okay, now this might shock you, but I haven't even touched on why Golett is a truly horrible card yet. If you look down at the bottom, you'll see it has a retreat cost of 3. This is an absolutely absurd number for an evolving basic Pokemon, and makes it an active liability to run. When you start a TCG match, you draw 5 random cards from your 20 card deck. The odds are very good that you have a Golett and no other basics if you're running 2 Golett, even if you have like 6 other basic Pokemon in your deck. And if that happens, you're forced to leave with it, and it's trapped in. You can use an X speed to reduce the retreat cost by 1, or you can use a leaf to reduce it by 2, at the cost of not being able to use any other support cards that turn. But in both instances, you still have to attach and discard at least 1 and possibly 2 Psychic energies, just to get Golett off the field. And if you don't do that, good odds you're condemning it to die, which gives the opponent an immediate edge in points when they're still setting up their bench Pokemon at the same speed as you. Even if you draw a Golett and another Pokemon, the opponent can potentially just Sabrina you into the Golett, trapping it on the field. To be safe against this, you need to draw at least 2 basic Pokemon that are not Golett in your initial 5-card draw, which is a very tall ask. Even if you do build up the energy and X speed or leaf to get the Golett off the field, the opponent can potentially just Sabrina it back in and set you back tons of turns and resources. And this high retreat cost can lead to some extremely awkward situations. Let's go back to that Voltorb example I had earlier. Voltorb evolves. Previously I gave in the example that Electrode just kills you, but the opponent doesn't even need to do that. They can just end their turn without attacking. I mean, you can't get your Golett off the field without wasting a leaf plus losing the energy attached to it, and if you do attach another energy, they'll just kill you on the next turn. But if you just leave it in and attach energy to your bench Pokemon waiting for the opponent to kill it, they can keep up building their own team. When they do finally kill you, maybe you can revenge kill the Electrode with something you built up, but maybe they can kill that with something they built up. And the ball is in their court. If they see you building up something dangerous for them in the long run, they can just kill Golett before you get it set up. High retreat cost Pokemon are such a liability if they come out before they're supposed to, which makes Golett an active handicap to the team. A card that was blank and did nothing would literally be a better pick for a Psychic deck than Golett just because of this. Anyway, in summary, my pick for the worst card in TCG Pocket right now is Rhyhorn, since it's basically the same card as Golett but with no energy acceleration at all, a weakness to a much more common type, and a worse evolution that has a 0% chance of doing something cool instead of a 1/4 chance. Thanks for watching, let me know if you'd ever like to see another video like this in future.